is the difference between a powerful woman and a manipulative one? A sex symbol versus pure evil animal? Or what about a glamorous icon versus a full-fledged villain? The golden age of Hollywood cinema defines this patriarchal line that is specific to female characters.
I am Catwoman. Hear me roar.
Institutionalizing a distinction between acceptable and unacceptable character arcs. Particularly in the year 1942, the establishment of the Hays Code disrupted many cinematic practices. Hollywood's RKO and Ren Clair Productions produced two films that influenced the trope Barbara Creed has coined woman as monster. These are known as Cat People and I Married a Witch. So how exactly did Hollywood transform the female psyche, sexuality, and gender into something capable of intense terror? To analyze this further, we must go back to 1942. Irina Dubrovna is a Serbian fashion designer with intense fears of transforming into a beast during sexual relations. As this supposed curse haunts her, her husband, Oliver Reed, confides in his co-worker Alice Moore and unleashes this curse from nightmare into a reality.
Looks like a cat.
The film covers the oppression of female sexuality in innuendos and use of contrasting shadows. Creed argues the monstrous feminine as constructed within and by a patriarchal and phallocentric ideology. This is related intimately to the problem of sexual difference and castration. Sexual difference is a strong theme in Cat People. Praised for its sound treatment and off-screen moments, the film has a duality of utilizing its psychological horror elements as a mode, as well as primary internal conflict for Irina. Therefore, it is established that Irina is the abnormal sexual desire, while in comparison, Alice and Oliver are the normal. They act as the American model of heterosexuality, the beacon of sexual normacy, and also subjects of fear. Alice and Oliver's relationship derives from sexual frustration and confusion, but they are also rarely punished for this despite being borderline adulterous during the Hays Code. Even the scene where Irina first allows Oliver into her quarters is something that was seen as very scandalous and potentially not allowed to be shown on screen. Somehow, the studio allowed this because the audience is more closely positioned to identify with them. Creed says that this is based on the psychoanalytic framework as created by Freud. Essentially, Freud's argument is that the patriarchal view is a woman may terrify others because she is castrated and causes a fear that she may castrate others. Especially in Cat People, directly portraying female as ferocious, non-human, and animal, and further symbolizing female sexuality as an animal waiting to be uncaged by man. By imbuing its protagonist with predatory curiosity of real animals, and simultaneously showing quiet moments of mental anguish and intense suppression of herself, Irina becomes the primary source of paranoia. She is constantly othered and rejected, especially by her own husband, introducing ambiguity and uncertainty. In fact, Irina's sexuality is positioned as a lethal opposition to society, and therefore this is a threat that must be extinguished, thus leading to the film's ending sequence where Irina returns to the zoo to let out the panther and is found by Alice and Oliver, mauled and left to die. Danvers, Massachusetts, 1692. One summer, many girls began experiencing temporary blindness, deafness, and fits of uncontrollable screaming. Women faced grotesque accusation, unexplained supernatural events, and persecution by death. Danvers is also known as the former New England colonial town of Salem. The portrayal of witches in film is somewhat similar to the historical portrayal. Old, evil, and incapable of bearing children. Creed adds they're usually depicted as monstrous figures with supernatural powers, a desire for evil. Her other social functions as healer and seer are largely omitted from contemporary portrayals. On the other hand, the film I Married a Witch presents a 300-year-old Jennifer as blonde, cunning, and playful witch who falls in love with Wallace Woolley. The romantic comedy satirizes gender stereotypes and the witch trope, using comedy as a pervasive tool to subvert the gender and sexuality discourse that it offers. This again is another strategy to combat against the Hays Code. The gothic icons of smoke, brooms, and potions, plus the notion of Jennifer being an assertive female character, are utilized in support of directing irony to gender dynamics rather than working to deconstruct gender dynamics. For example, Wooly carrying Jennifer out of a building despite her being the reason for the fire, and the scenario where Wooly tends to her head after she magically pushes a painting off the wall. Ultimately, these are humorous examples that play into the gender stereotypes. Despite the satirical undertone, the film somehow subverts any insecurity about powerful female protagonists. Despite Jennifer being self-aware of her roles and how she is viewed as a woman in society, and even though she is noted as most powerful in her smoke form rather than human body form, whenever she is in her smoke form, she's constantly being paraded by her father, and towards the very end, her father delivers her a ultimatum. Either Jennifer gives up Wooly as her lover, or she gives up her powers. The concept that she could ever have both, being powerful and having a husband and a family, is intentionally rejected. This concept is most bluntly pointed out in the scene where Jennifer plans to give Wooly a love potion, but instead of him drinking it, she drinks it. This is an interesting narrative that seems to lead to domestication and the return to an American nuclear family structure. In conclusion, you can see similarities between both films as they are both derivative of the same year and have the female and male characters are treated similarly in both end sequences. These narrative structures, whether the woman is an animal or a witch, nevertheless usually end in total demise or fatality in order to secure society. So I guess that leaves the question of, do you think these movies work to actively deconstruct gender, or are they upholding some old-fashioned values?